Welcome to another Shay's Insights video. So glad you're here. As we have been doing as of late, we write an article and then it's followed by the next week or week after with a video on the same topic. We found that some people prefer to read things while others prefer to watch. So with that in mind, let us begin. The title of this video is Quantum Spiritual Changes Follow-on Video, obviously from the Quantum Spiritual Changes article. But it's specifically based upon one chapter from my book, Life Training in Communications of the Father. It's quantum changes which happened to me once, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that here from my excerpt. As we've been talking about, a lot of these changes, as these energies come in, are happening automatically. We're not only having new connections made to the etheric realm, to higher, and we'll talk a little more about that in a second. Some of our old grounding points that no longer serve us are gone away, and new grounding points are created. So that's a constant, connection, disconnection, integration process. Additionally, and I've talked about this in other articles and I think in some other videos, is the spiritual connections that we have from this aspect of our being with other aspects of our being in what we may think of as the past, future, alternate realms. Those connections are becoming more active as well. And as they become more active, we connect with the energies of that aspect of our being. So if there's some life lesson here that we're supposed to learn, or some piece of knowledge we're supposed to gain, what can happen is that another aspect of us is also working on a portion of that same problem. We split it up amongst all of our different aspects so that we can learn faster as the greater aspect of our soul. Anyway, as that happens, it speeds things up. So I'm going to talk about that. So as all these connections with these different aspects of our being is happening, and these old connections are going away, it affects our memory because our brain is going to rewire along with this. I'm going to talk more about that in a moment. And people on the committed spiritual path, those that are really, their spiritual path is their focus, can feel like these growth changes are being thrust upon them, especially in these accelerated energetic times that we're in right now. Things are happening vastly, and that's not even an understatement, vastly faster than they have even 20 years ago. And so our spiritual evolution is going much quicker, which is wonderful, but it can also be a bit daunting, as a word I like to use. And it can feel like some of the utensils from our life's toolbox are missing. Because as old stuff falls away, it might be that we're used to using it, especially our left brain, because in a low self, which is our subconscious, likes to reuse things from the old memory store box. If it's been removed and a new connection has been made, we may not be completely familiar with that new connection, and we find ourselves the loss of, for example, words that we used to be able to flow to immediately, we can't. And we know it's not a memory problem because maybe we're 25 years old or 32 years old. We know that that's not the issue, and it isn't. It has to do with the evolutionary changes. So again, as our energies anchor higher, we get new connections there, new grounding points, and we're expanding into the extent of our being, which creates more interaction within ourselves and a lot more information flowing into us. So with that, let me talk a little bit more about these energies. And I've talked about it before, but I think it's really important to know. As we are anchoring higher, we are connecting with the energies, knowledge, skills, and abilities associated with those etheric levels and those energies. It connects us with new skills, new knowledge, and that can get downloaded into us. And as it gets downloaded into us, it takes a while to integrate. And during that integration process, it's like a cake batter that isn't completely mixed. It's hard to make use of it. It hasn't been baked yet. So with that, as we connect to these higher realms, it's also like the analogy I used in the article was like going to school. Because energetically, like going to school, these energies progress us from one set of knowledge, skills, and abilities to the next. And as that happens, it's also going to reflect outward in our outer life. the events of our outer life are going to naturally shift with the new energies. As these energies come in, they resonate with a certain frequency. They'll match up with the energies of the various choices that exist in our life plan or our life path, however you think of it, and we'll automatically shift to it. So if you're having this set of experiences in your life where all of a sudden everything that you knew fell away, or a whole bunch of new stuff came in, or a whole bunch of new stuff came in that's really different, and it's not part of the rhythm of your life that you're used to, along with things falling away, that is the reason why. But dread not or fear not. This is a wonderful thing, because this, if the fact that it's happening means you're ready for it. So, the other thing that happens, whatever happens to the energetic bodies, our brain is the biochemical equivalent of our spiritual bodies. It's just a physical creation of it. So as these energies come in and change our bodies and anchor new energies and knowledge, our brain starts getting rewired too. And I talked about that. So that's going to bring us to what I talked about in the Quantum Changes chapter in my book. And I'm just going to paraphrase. This was in 2007, 2008, maybe even into the 2009 timeframe. I'd gone through a major 6 to 8 month period of fast changes. During a deep meditation in Theta, the Father told me, go higher and higher in the etheric realm until I tell you to do otherwise. He didn't tell me why, just said that was it. That were my marching orders, so to speak. So I was doing that. And as I went through the levels, which I refer to as octaves, because it's like musical notes, it really is very similar to that. I came and ran into the Father, and he told me to merge with him, to become him. I'm not exactly sure on the words. So I had some trepidation, even within the meditation, to do that, probably from my low self that's, because we're not only in Theta, we also have pieces of us that are at the conscious level at the same time. Anyway, but I did it. And I remember afterwards I disconnected, and then it was time for me to go back and back to the conscious state. And after I did this, I didn't realize how profoundly that meditation had affected me. I came out of it, I was disoriented. It's like I was still there with the Father. And as that happened, my chair was next to the bed, so I just basically crawled from the chair onto my bed and went to sleep for 2 hours. Then I went to work. And this is when I realized things can happen to us very, very quickly. I mean, I've seen it before, but every time it happens, it's kind of like it's new again. So with that, I went to work. I worked at a convenience store. It was a motel and a gas station. And there was 2 of us on shift because it was summertime. And the one person was bagging ice, which is kind of a fun thing to do. It's a solitary task. It's fun. You can just sit and think about things and bag ice. So I took my pass down, and I realized I wasn't following the conversation. So I just nodded my head as the person told me all the pass down from the shift, who's in what rooms, and the sheets need to be changed on that bed and that sort of thing. Anyway, so I had my first customer, and he bought some soda, I think, and some candies, and he handed me a $5 bill. And until that point, I'd always figured change in my head. I'm very good at math. And so I went and so I never learned how to do it on the cash register. That's a good little point there. So he handed me that, I put it in, and then I didn't know what to do. I couldn't do the math. And then the drawer opened. And before me, and this is a really accurate way of describing it, I saw these flat little metal round things in the drawer. I'm looking down like I did that day. And it's like, what are those? I couldn't figure it out. And it's like, and finally, within a few seconds, I realized they had monetary value. And I'd seen them my whole life. I knew all about them, yet I was disconnected from them. My brain had become vastly rewired, dramatically rewired, during that encounter with the Father. Now this can happen not just with, example, the Father, the Mother, other divinities that we know. It can just happen as part of moving to another realm, to another level or octave. Anyway, the customer was looking at me weirdly like, have you been taking some illegal drugs or something? Is there something wrong with you? And he told me what the actual amount of change was supposed to be several times. So finally, I hand him the correct amount of change, and he moves on his way. That was a real example of what can happen to us. And from that point forward, for a long period of time, I could not do math in my head again. My left brain just didn't operate the way it used to. And I realized major things can happen to us in an instant when we're ready. And our higher guidance will do that. Now, when these kinds of things happen, I talk about the long-term benefit. This kind of quantum growth can happen in an instant that would normally take us a lifetime. When the conditions are right and we're ready, and they know, they being our higher guidance, know when we're ready, they can make it happen. This especially happens during spiritual classes, seminars, where they've created a sacred space, because it becomes like a high-speed spiritual cosmic internet connection. And trust me, your higher guidance, our higher guidance, will take advantage of it. Now, one thing that came out of this as I went further on, this was in the months preceding it, afterward, the Father, and he told me once, and this is the only time during that he's ever spoken to me technically, and I'm paraphrasing here because I'd have to go to my journal to get the actual words, but it was very technical. And I was beginning to become dismayed because I was going to these higher realms. When I'm up there and operating from my higher mind, just as we all do, it was all clear. I'm like, I am going to write this down when I get back. And then I come back, and my brain, I'm just, blah, 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 blah. What do I do? I was unable to talk about it, and I didn't know what to do about it. And the Father told me, he said, and I'm going to read off this sheet here. It's a paraphrasing of what he told me. He says, our brains have a biochemical limitation that do not allow it to fully encode the analogous references to those higher spiritual experiences. In other words, the experiences up there are so profound and have references to things that our brain cannot even possibly encode or conceive. And I quit journaling soon after that because of that. There's no way to talk about this stuff anymore. So the best we can do, as Joseph Campbell talks about, there's 3 things we talk about. The first thing that we talk about, and I think it's from his friend Heinrich Himmler, cannot be talked about. They're beyond human knowing. The next best things are misunderstood. Poetry, art. These are things that point toward that which cannot be talked about. That's the transcendent experience. That's what we get when we start moving in our spiritual realm higher and higher and higher and allow things to happen. And then the third thing, of course, is what we do talk about. The weather, sports, what's happening in our life, our car broke down, those kinds of things. So that's probably why the Father told me that, was so that I remembered I have a connection to the experience with the brain, and that's all we need. Once we have that connection, we can go back there and operate from our higher mind, our high self's mental body, so to speak. Now, I know I've said this before, but I cannot overemphasize it. With all these incoming energies happening as fast as they are, it's wonderful for those who have good, let's say, emotional grounding, good family grounding, but especially those who have a good spiritual grounding, because with that connection, our higher guidance can keep us flowing with things. Old things can disconnect, new connections can be made, new energies and knowledge can come in. The evolution of our life, our outer life, that reflects those incoming energies. In other words, as they come in, as I mentioned before, the outer events of our life will change. We just know that's part of the spiritual experience, and we flow with it. But the vast majority of the people in the world are not there. They operate from the low self and ego, and they're not able to handle this. And because of it, these energies, as they come in, they can literally make people act irrationally. I don't want to say my friend would say nuts, but in other words, irrationally. So if you wonder what's happening out in the world, it's like what happens when you put subjects in a room with very high frequency ultrasonic sound. They can't hear it, yet it affects their psyche, and they start acting crazily. I'm going to use it as a descriptive word. That's the same thing these energies can do. So This is a spiritual renaissance. It's an awesome time to be alive. We can do, the spiritual growth we can do in this lifetime is just many times, many-fold, 10 times, 20 times, possibly more, that would happen in a normal lifetime, say back in the 1700s or something, because of the energy levels. So what a time to be in the world. So in closing, I want to talk about this in one other facet. These quantum spiritual changes as they're happening, embrace them, flow with them, meditate daily, ground yourself. You can use the grounding exercise we have out on shaysholistics.com, and we have at the end of every monthly meditation. It's there for a reason, to help us connect, ground, and reintegrate the energies that just came in. If these things are happening to you and you're finding that your life's toolbox things have been missing and things are being thrust upon you and life events are unfolding quickly and it seems erratic, just know that you're ready for it. Do your best to meditate, use whatever form you want. You can use the ones we have out on Shay's Holistics. There's plenty of them out on the internet. Whatever you're called to listen to, use those that can help keep these energies grounded and integrating. Because if this is happening to you, you're on the spiritual fast track. And this is the track of the initiate. This rewiring and incoming energies make it possible for us to move on and wrap things up in this lifetime. And that's part of what a lot of people are doing now. Now I'll talk about that more in subsequent videos. But for now, blessings, light, and love. I hope this video was of value to you. Have a wonderful, blessed day. Bye-bye.